Good morning. My name is Nate McCoy. I'm with the Iowa Golf Association. I'm going to cover Rule 12 bunkers. Basically, this presentation is going to outline what you can and cannot do in a bunker, as well as show you what restrictions are present when you're in a bunker, and also show you what exceptions to those restrictions are also present. We're going to briefly talk about the purpose statement of this rule, but then jump right in to the full rule and cover it in its entirety. We're gonna, you can see here, it's broken into two parts, 12.1 and 12.2. 12.1 is when a ball is in a bunker. 12.2 is playing a ball in a bunker. As we said, this rule is specific for bunkers. These are specially prepared areas intended to test the player's ability to play a ball from the sand. Obviously, there's going to be some challenge presented by playing a ball in a bunker. You're playing off of sand for one, which is difficult, but two, there are certain restrictions that are going to be placed on you in a bunker that will also create more uncertainty for playing that next shot. And we're going to cover some of those restrictions in the next few slides. Now, how do you determine if your ball is in a bunker? Well, if any part of the golf ball touches sand on the ground inside the edge of a bunker, or is on the ground inside the edge of the bunker where sand normally would be, say if it's resting on a washout area, for example, and it's inside the edge of a bunker, that ball is going to be considered in a bunker. Now, there's other times where your ball could be resting in or on a loose impediment, movable obstruction, abnormal course condition, or integral object. As you can see on the right, that ball is resting on a rake. That's considered a movable obstruction. It's well within the bounds of the edge of the bunker. It's going to be considered a ball in the bunker. Now, there are other times when a ball might be inside the edge of a bunker, but is resting on grass or soil or other growing or attached natural objects. An example of this would be church pew bunkers. In that case, the ball would be considered part of the general area and could be all the normal actions such as taking practice swings and grounding your club and all that still apply. Now, if part of the ball is both in a bunker and in another area of the golf course, please consult Rule 2.2c. This is going to outline kind of a specific order that's going to determine which area of the golf course your golf ball is in. Now, in the picture on the right, this is a golf ball that's resting in the bunker, but also touching the red penalty area. In this case, because of Rule 2.2c, it's going to deem that ball to be in the penalty area. So if you do have any questions when you're out there, when your ball might be touching one or the other, just consult that rule. Now, before playing a ball in a bunker, a player may remove loose impediments or movable obstructions. Now, in doing so, sand is often going to be moved as a result of removing the object. Just know that there's no penalty if this improves the conditions affecting the stroke, as long as the actions taken to remove the loose impediments or movable obstruction were reasonable. And reasonable means that you did so with a lot of care and did so in a very unintrusive way. So make sure when you're removing these items, you're not dragging them or creating some type of ideal perfect lie. If you do that, you'd be subject to 2 strokes penalty. Now, moving on to 2.2b, we're going to cover some of the restrictions and also talk about what happens when you play a ball out of a bunker. Are you allowed to rake or not rake? So we're going to talk a little bit about that to kind of close it. So point number 1, before making a stroke at a ball in a bunker, a player must not deliberately touch sand in the bunker with his hand, club, rake, or other object to test the condition of the sand. So to test the condition of the sand is kind of an important point. You're going to see later that there are times where you can touch the sand under certain circumstances, but if you're trying to do so to test the condition of the sand, you would be under penalty of the general penalty of 2 strokes. You also are not allowed to place or ground the club in front of or behind the golf ball. There are 2 exceptions to this. where you are allowed to touch sand, and we did kind of already talk about how you're allowed to remove loose impediments, and in doing so, you might move a little sand. You're also allowed to fairly search for the golf ball. For example, if your ball is embedded or not embedded, but if your ball is plugged in the bunker or covered by sand completely and you can't find it, you are allowed to probe for that golf ball and search for it by moving sand. So those are the two exceptions. Um, Now, I know that penalty areas have changed in this regard, where you can take practice swings and take make contact with the ground in a bunker. That is still not allowed. You're also not allowed to touch sand while making the backswing of your intended stroke. So here's a little video of what that means. So as you can see, that ball has been, or that player has dragged the club behind and moved sand. If that player, sees that he did it, he needs to call a penalty on himself. Now, there are some exceptions. You are still allowed to dig in with your feet to take a stance for either a practice swing or the stroke. You can smooth the bunker to care for the golf course. You can place clubs, equipment, or other objects in the bunker. Um, you can measure, mark, lift, replace, or take other actions under a rule. So let's say, for example, in the right, this guy, let's just say he's taking unplayable ball relief. He is using his club to measure his relief area, and in so doing so, he's touching the sand. Under the rules, that would be okay. Um, the player is allowed to lean on a golf club to rest, stay balanced, or prevent a fall. So let's say you're walking into a real steep bunker and you think you're going to trip, you can use the club as a brace or like a cane. Lastly, the player is allowed to strike the sand in frustration or anger. Now, I will say that there could be times when a committee puts a player conduct policy in place that maybe would prohibit this. So I would just recommend not going overboard, because um, the last thing we want is damage to the golf course or outbursts that are unprofessional. Now, the player is going to get the general penalty if his or her actions in touching the sand improve the conditions affecting the stroke. Now, we did kind of briefly talk about this, and I know that this is going to be talked about in another presentation, but as a reminder, the lie of the player's ball at rest, the area of the player's intended stance, the area of the player's intended swing, the player's line of play, and the relief area where the player will drop or place a ball are going to be considered um, under conditions affecting the stroke. Now, if you're also considering to learn more about that, Rule 8.2 and 8.3 are good places to look for more information on limitations on improving or worsening the area around the ball. Now, after a ball has been in a bunker and has been played outside the bunker, the player may touch sand in a bunker without penalty. So in this case, this player over here played his shot out of the bunker in the background and played across the green and ended up in the other bunker. Well, in that case, the player still has the ability to touch sand in that bunker. He can rake um, and take his frustrations out, whatever he'd like. That is warranted. Now, there might be some times where a player decides to take stroke and distance relief. And an example I'm going to try to explain to you what this rule is going to kind of talk about here is that there are times where, let's say, a player's in a bunker and he hits a shot, he sculls it over the green, for example, and it goes out of bounds. That player has the right under the rules to rake uh, that area where he's going to be dropping the ball in a bunker. He does not have to play his ball out of his footprints or from the area where his ball was hit from. Now, there's other times where, let's say, a player plays a shot. In this case, it's going to be a player who's playing a shot backwards. He's going to walk to the bunker, and now that he's out of the bunker, he has the right under the rules to um, rake his footprints. And even though that is going to be on the player's line of play, it's going to be allowed under the rules. And you'll see here in this video that he rakes up his footprints and plays on. Now, if the ball has been played for the bunker and then comes back into the bunker, or the player takes relief by dropping the ball in the bunker, all those restrictions that we talked about previously, such as not touching the sand to test the surface, or any of that, that's going to apply here as well. Now, penalty for breach of any of Rule 12.2 is going to be the general penalty. So make sure that you just know this rule and have fun playing out of bunkers. Have a good day.